Hello, welcome to another terrain video on the Battling Wargaming. It's all very well doing these big builds, look impressive, but for me sometimes it's those little small details that can make or break a gaming board, whether it be for RPGs or war games. So if you're setting up a town video, it's those little small details that do it for me. I think I mentioned this before on my Wartime board build, where the buildings look great and stuff, but it was those scatter bits that sort of told a story. So what I want to do here is make a quest board, a message board, so you can put in sort of your town games, even if your war games and stuff like this could be good. But I wanted to, if you're doing an RPG specifically, so if there's notices on the board, it will let players know that there are new quests, but you can also, I want you to be able to remove the notices to let them know there's nothing new there for them to look at. So I came up with this idea of having, this is what we're going to be making, of having the message board magnetized, so you can put different notices on and remove the ones that are not in use. It's a little magnetized notice board. So that's what we're going to be making. So let's crack on and get building. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut strips of 6mm foam, and I'm going to work out the height of how I want it. So here's Hugo. Here I decide that I'm going to make it 5 centimeters high, but a bit later on you'll see that originally I had it as 4 centimeters high for a while, so forgive me for that, the powers of editing. So using a model just for reference, I can see how high I want it, and as I mentioned, these are just 6mm foam that I've cut into 6mm strips. So just going to eyeball it and cut it like so, and I'll need 2 of those. Now I've got the height, I can work out the width again using Hugo here just as a reference. So I'm going to see how wide I want it, make a cut like before, and again I'll need 2 of these. Here on the top beam I want it slightly angled, so I'm just going to come down and cut a little sort of 45-degree angle like so. This will go along the top. The middle I kind of want to sit it back, so I'm going to work out, so again, the height of it, coming with a pen and mark out sort of where those beams are at the end, and then I want to cut out a little notch that thick, but about halfway thick on the beam, and I'm just going to come in with a knife and cut those out so it will sit back on the upright beams. Once I've got all the pieces cut out, I'm going to come in and do a wood grain texture, just using the texture tool. And once that's all done, I'm just going to glue it all together. The beginning bit of the video didn't record, but there's just blobs of PVA glue here. I'm just going to use the grid of the cutting mat to help me align it all. Next, using some 1mm chipboard, I'm going to draw around the inner area, and then I will cut this out. I'll just do a rough few markings here first, just to give me an idea of the size, and then I'll come in with a rule and straighten that up, and then using scissors cut this out. Then using the sculpting tool, I'm going to come in and do a plank effect, so doing some fairly deep grooves with the sculpting tool. and then some lighter wood grain texture using the same tool. This is the magnetic strip from the cavern videos, so if you want to see what that is, watch that. I'm just going to cut a piece out that's the same size as the chipboard and also come in and carve in a wood grain effect. Yeah, this is a really cheap magnetic sheet. I'll put a link to it in the description where you can get it. If you want to know more about it, watch the cavern tile video. You do have to be careful with polarity with this, that's the only thing I would say. I'm just going to glue the two pieces now together, so the wood grain effect will be on the outside of both pieces. Using the same chipboard, I am going to mark out a bit that's 1.5 centimeters. I want it slightly wider than the frame. And then I'm just going to engrave a wood grain texture into this. Once I've done that, I'm going to cut some that are just about 0.5 centimeter wide, and then nick off the ends of some of them just so they're not as uniform and new looking. I'm going to now come along and put a bead of glue around the board and glue that into place with the magnetic part of it facing forwards. Make sure it's not too far. I don't want it sitting flush anywhere, so it wants to be in the middle. I'm going to come along and put a bead of glue along the top and glue in the shingle tiles. Next, going to come on with some plastic rod and cut out 1mm discs from this. I've used this before a lot on the channel for details. And this is going to be used as nails into the piece. I'm going to put 2 along the front here, holding that cross beam into the upright beams. And what you can do is you just push your finger into the discs and then drop them onto the blobs of glue. And if you need to manipulate them, you can come in with your sculpting tool and move them around, and you've got plenty of working time because it's PVA. Each shingle at the top will have 2 nails holding it into place, so these are just glued in the same method. And there will be 2 on the back of the upright and cross beams, mirroring what was done on the front. Next, I'm going to glue it into a base, so this is just like a sausage of chipboard, and I'm just going to put some blobs of glue on the bottom of the upright posts, push it onto the board, and then actually use the glue itself just to hold it in place, just so it's got something to rest upon when it dries. Next up, and this may have been easier to have done this sooner before it was all assembled, I'm just going to cut out some of the edges just so it's not as neat and new looking. And now painting. This is just some burnt umber that I'm just going to cover the entire piece in. Once that's dried, I'm going to come in with some Steel Legion drab and dry brush that all over. On the magnetic bit where it doesn't take the carving as much, just dry brush the planks into it and give that a dry brush all over. Finally, going to come in with a light tan. This is Wraithbone, and I'm just going to pick out those real top highlights. And then I'm going to give it a wash of Acrylic Earthshade. Once that's dry, I'm going to come in with some lead belcher and pick out the rivets, the nails. We're using that. final paint we're going to do is some camo green. This is a really old pot, so it's nice and dry, which is perfect for dry brushing. And this is what I actually mainly use this paint for, is for this sort of dry brushing. I'm going to come in and paint the sort of dry brush it on the edges of the shingles and heavy on the bottom. Going to come in and dry brush it heavy on the bottom of the posts, but giving it a lighter brush all over in places. But those bottoms should be heavy where they meet the ground, when they've gone a bit mouldy. Next, I'm going to come in and make some notices for our notice board. This is a rectangle of the magnetic stuff. I'm going to come in with some cream sort of parchment coloured paper, but you don't have to do this because you can just wash it, and cut out a piece that's the same size as the magnetic rectangle we've already cut out. And then I'll glue these together, and here's where you got to be careful with the polarity of the magnetic strip, so it will fit to the notice board. So yeah, just a bit of PVA, attach them together, push them in, and come in with a sepia wash. I think this is Griffon sepia from Games Workshop. I'm just gonna give that a wash over it. So if you don't have parchment coloured paper already, you don't have to worry. This should give that effect with white paper. And what I'm going to do is just give it a heavier wash along the edges and corners. Once that's dry, I'm going to come in with a fine tip permanent marker and just write some scribbles on it really. So what I wanted to do here is a wanted poster, so I'm actually trying to write wanted in letters, but the rest of it can just be random scribbles. It's so small you wouldn't be able to read it at that scale anyway, and so I did almost a little portrait here of a face for a wanted poster, but you can do whatever you want with them. And now what you can do is make a load of them, and so you can remove them, attach them, move them around as you see fit. So probably a bit overkill, but I kind of like the idea of being able to put different posters on at different times. And this is what it will look like at this stage. What I decided to do is raid my bits box and come up with this lantern. I think this was from a Warhammer sprue, maybe Empire Mordheim. I'm just going to glue that in, just using white glue, PVA glue. And what I did here is instead of putting it dead parallel, I moved it so the lantern sort of faced the front more, which is what I'm doing here. Next up, I'm going to cover the base in PVA glue, and then with a wet brush, so it's a bit slightly watered down, manipulate it around so it covers the entire base, and making sure I get those edges covered in PVA. And now we're going to get onto the flocking stage. So the first flock I'm going to use is a dark soil flock. I think this is a Woodland Scenics one, and just put that in small patches. Then another Woodland Scenics dark green flock. I think this is actually called Green Blend. I'm going to come in with a mid green. This is from Jarvis. Doesn't really matter what flocks you use. And finally a light green. I think that's the important stage. Earth, dark, medium, light. Get you a nice looking ground. I'm going to use some tacky glue, and I'm going to paint this round the bottom of the vertical posts on the base. And you're going to leave that for 5 minutes so it goes tacky. I'm going to come in using some, I think again this is Woodland Scenics. I've had this for so long. It's just long grass, and I'm going to cut that to sort of size. It's this about a centimetre tall. And I'm going to put this around the base, and your fingers will get sticky and it will stick to your fingers rather than where you want it to go. But not to worry, I'm just going to come in and put that all around the bottom of the posts. And what I'm going to do is give it a haircut and a trim. going to come around and all the wispy bits that I don't want and all bits that are too long, just give it a haircut. And that is pretty much it done. This is what it will look like now. So you can move these posters around and put as many or as little as you want on. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, comment and share it. Let people know that this channel exists and we do sort of terrain. That would be great. That would be a massive help to me. But until the next video, guys, the next thing we're going to look at is the glamour shot. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Hope it will be of some use for your games. Till the next video, guys, please stay safe and take care.